Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, former President Nicolas Sarkozy has been sentenced to 5 years in prison by a Paris court after being found guilty of criminal conspiracy in a case linked to alleged Libyan funding for his 2007 campaign. Now, Sarkozy was fined 100,000 euros and has announced that he will appeal. For Africa, the story lands like an old wound reopening. This is, more than a legal drama in Paris. It is a reminder of the hidden networks of influence that tied dictators, money, and Western capitals for decades. The trial has dragged into daylight the murky flow of Gaddafi-era cash, rattling the myth of neat lines between diplomacy and dirty deals, and also reigniting anger about Françafrique across the continent. Whatever happens next in courts or in the streets, this verdict forces a bitter reckoning about who benefited from those relationships and how history, power, and money were traded in the shadow of North Africa and the Sahel. And today on The Conversation, I'm joined by Ejike Okpa, Global Affairs Analyst in Texas, USA, and also Alex Vines, Director of Africa Program, Chatham House, Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us at this time.
Well, thank you.
It's a pleasure. Now, let's begin with Ejike. Ejike, let's put this simply. Why exactly should Africans care about a French court case from Paris? Can you connect the ruling to everyday issues in Africa in terms of security, aid, defense, contracts, and also political culture?
Thank you for that question. It is something that African leaders haven't been able to do. They haven't been accountable to their country. They haven't managed their resources. Anytime an African president gets the power, what do? They seek relationship with, a former colonial country, and they go there as frequent as they want. You look at Tinubu, how many times has Tinubu been abroad now, and he's chosen France. I hope he's watching to see, that the former president of France, is handed a prison sentence because of, money issues. And then you see when even African leaders, especially Nigerian leaders, when they run for office, they go to Chatham House. What the heck is that? Why are you still in bed with a former colonial, government that never thought you were able to do something? I think it's time for the African leaders to stand up and do the right thing. They don't have to embrace England. They don't have to embrace France. They don't have to embrace anybody. If a relationship is not going to be on equal basis, then why are you doing it? When Tinubu and Obi and everybody else was running for office, they went to Chatham House. I mean, you just imagine an American president going to Chatham House or anybody outside of America to go and seek support. So these are the things that Africans should be watching. We are no longer in 1940 or 50. There's nothing a white man, excuse me, the guest who is over there with you, there's nothing a white man is going to tell Africans now that Africans can figure out for themselves. But as soon as you keep looking to them for solution for what you can do for yourself, there is a shame on the black race, and the Africans represent that black race. When Singapore got their independence, they cut relationship with the Commonwealth, and that's why they've been able to do what they do. But since independence, tell me an African country that has been able to be successful. They are always embracing somebody, running to England. If there's a conflict between Nigeria and Cameroon, instead of them getting together, they run to Chatham House, or they run to Paris, or they go to London. Stop that. It's not good. There is no school, there's no university in the world, and African hasn't gone and even sometimes performed better than the so-called people, white people they run to for solution. It. Tell them, no, we're not going to do it. Because until no is very powerful in international relationship. And if you don't do that, they're going to stay looking at you. I live in Dallas, I run for office. I want to know that American who can come and talk to me about Nigeria better than I can talk about Nigeria. You have to define your boundary. So I'm hoping that someday some of these Nigerian presidents who people know have done this are going to be tried and sentenced. South Korea was able to do it, and that's how South Korea emerged as a country of repute, because they went back and they tried all their former presidents who were, alleged to have committed some corruption. So again, this subject is very sensitive to me.
Yeah.
Thank God I have lived in America as I've lived, but I'm just saying that Africans should stop what the things they are doing. The Chatham House, I don't know how relevant they are. They should not be talking to any African leaders.
All right.
Africans should embrace their solutions.
All right, Ejike, we understand how sensitive this is for you. Now, let's hear from Alex as well. Alex, what are your thoughts? Does this verdict change the narrative of Françafrique? And for those of us who actually have no idea what this is, it means the old system of opaque networks between Paris and also African elites. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, Françafrique is neo-colonialism, basically, and France had deep and continued relationships across Africa. It never really fully decolonized, and it's dealing with that hangover now with the pushback against it, particularly in West Africa, and the focal areas have been the Sahelian states and Côte d'Ivoire to a degree. One thing I'd like to correct is that I don't work at Chatham House any longer. I'm the Africa Director at the European Council on Foreign Relations, which is a pan-European policy institute with offices across Europe and a headquarters in Berlin. Look, this particular, the banner under me is incorrect. This scandal around Sarkozy is not unique to him, and it's not actually unique to Françafrique. The issue is that there are real problems in Europe for political fundraising, and so for elections and for political fundraising, European politicians historically, particularly but France, but there are examples elsewhere across Europe, have gone to Africa to seek funding and patronage exchange that way. And Gaddafi was very good at this and provided funding to a number of different politicians, both European, but he was also in the game to do the same thing in Africa. So many West African politicians and former heads of state benefited in their electoral campaigns from the largesse of Gaddafi. And, Gaddafi's gone, but we can still see this pattern continuing. I do agree with your previous speaker that Africa needs to stand on its own 2 feet. But you can see the numbers of Africans going to seek funding in the United Arab Emirates or the Gulf states, or in fact going to Russia also. And that's a continued pattern from the one that we're seeing related to with Sarkozy here, which is these relationships of patronage and money. A lot of African money, unfortunately, is being offshored, including into tax havens and other locations. And although Singapore's a very successful country, for sure, and impressive growth, it has also benefited from flows of money out of Africa. And there lies another problem.
All right, let's come back to you, Ejike. Ejike, we understand that finally there's been a ruling, but why do you think it took over a decade to convict Sarkozy? What does this delay reveal about, global justice systems, especially when powerful figures are involved?
Well, I mean, he's not a common criminal. I mean, this is somebody who at the time was president of a powerful known country. And so you have to be very careful in the evidence gathering. And then when you present that evidence, you have to make sure you get a conviction. Because if you just do it, and then you lose, then it's a credibility issue for the prosecutorial team. So, money is a DNA. You could trace it. And I like what the gentleman, the fellow guest said, we have to be very sincere about some of these undue influences. Whether, when Warren Christopher, a former Secretary of State before Madeleine Albright left, he wrote a book called Chances of a Lifetime. And in that book, he said that France should hands off their control over Africa. But the thing is, the African leaders, you look at the guy in Cameroon, you look at the guy in the Congo Brazzaville, you look at all the French African speaking countries, nobody's holding guns to their head to do what they do. Again, I believe in the international diplomacy. If a relationship is not going to benefit your country, say no. People love no, because when you say no, it's confidence. They're going to say, okay, what is it that we're missing in this conversation? But if you're going to kowtow and you're going to constantly go to them, I'm saying we are no longer in the dark periods when we were, when Africa was colonized and Africans even helped to fight the war for European countries. My mom used to tell me or ask me, how many times will something happen to you before you wisen up? How many times? The black contingent, the African contingencies that go to UN are the most, sad case of leadership. They go over there to go say things that you say, why are you even saying this? If you don't want to participate in the General Assembly, stay at home. Stay at home. Talk to your people. Tell them, here are the challenges we are facing, and this is how we're going to go about it. But when you take the African money and then you put it in foreign banks and you turn around and say, oh, we need a reparation for slavery, who are you fooling? Africans are equal opportunity participants in the unfortunate situation they have found themselves. So I don't think anybody outside of Africa should have any sympathy on how Africans have treated themselves. I think they should be responsible, and if there's any money that flows into their country institutions, be able to do what? Expose who is doing it. Because for corruption to happen, there's got to be two players, the giver and the taker. Let's not just talk about the giver. It's also so the European countries or the foreign countries that do this to Africans, they ought to have a responsibility in what is going on in Africa. Until they say, we're not going to do this anymore. If money is going to be exchanging hands, it has to exchange hands to what is apparent and what is clear to everybody to understand. But funding political people and then use it as a way to now, yank their chain when they got into office is criminal. And we shouldn't be experiencing this in 21st century. African leaders that do it, African people should start speaking up, and not only speaking up, acting up. This is a shameful situation. More than 60 years of independence for most African countries. You go there and you ask yourself, well, what is the proof of democracy or whatever sort of government they have had? Nothing, no infrastructure, no health institution, no credible universities, just a few people moving money around, and while 99% of the population are suffering.
All right, and now speaking of, parties involved in corruption and also holding them accountable, Alex, this is for you. Now, Sarkozy's wife also faced charges, for hiding evidence. How often are family members entangled in political scandals? And do you think that political families should also be held to the same standard?
Yeah, look, if the investigations by the judicial team, the investigators show that she's also guilty, then she obviously should be prosecuted and she should be jailed. I mean, my view is anybody who is involved in these things, you shouldn't be protected because you've been in political high office. So I agree with Ejike. Europeans need to clean up their act as well as Africans. And in terms of the Sarkozy scandal, which, as I say, there's been various versions of this over French history for raising money for political campaigning, you'll also find that, there are allegations of Marine Le Pen being involved looking for money in a neighboring country to Nigeria, which may still play out. So Ejike is right in this. But how can Europeans clean this up? Well, one is transparency and disclosure of money flows. But a fundamental issue is about reforming the way that politics is funded in Europe. A number of European countries, it is that political parties have to go to businessmen and others to raise money, and so indirectly that's how influence comes often from Africa and other parts of the world. My own view is that actually there should be a state set budget, and each party gets a percentage of that, and that's what you get for campaigning, and that's it. And that would then cut out this link between kind of opacity and fundraising and the sleaze that you get in European politics in a number of countries and elections. We'll see if that will happen. I mean, elections are very expensive businesses. Of course, the United States is the most expensive, but my God, I mean, you just went through a couple of years ago the most expensive election in Nigerian history. I mean, the amount of money spent on that. If you want to run for office in Nigeria, you need a godfather, and that means a lot of money.
So still on you, Alex. Now, we'll come back to you, Ejike, but still on you, Alex. Do you think that this verdict would actually encourage African governments, to press, or even civil society groups, to press Paris for transparency on past deals? Or do you think that, they will keep quiet for diplomatic reasons?
Look, it will depend on the African countries. Some countries are a lot more transparent and have much stronger institutions than others. So I disagree that all African countries are a failure, so I don't agree with Ejike on that. But, there's a whole spectrum of different levels of success of African states and the degree of probity that they have. I do believe that transparency and disclosure is really important, and having vibrant institutions and having a strong civil society. So these things can get revealed through the press, through investigative journalism, through leaks of information. Often, those are the kind of safety valves, for example, in Nigeria at times. I mean, Nigeria, you've got variability between different states. Some are much better run and administered and less corrupt than others. So it's not even a national problem. It can be a very localized problem with great variety, and that's the same in Europe.
All right. Now let's come back to you, Ejike. Now, first of all, let's hear your thoughts on if you feel that, family members found complicit should also be held to the same standard before we ask the next question.
Well, yes. It's, to your question, it takes two to tango. Again, if the giver and the taker, and then, the taker, maybe somebody who's getting support from a family member. In the U.S. Recently, a senator from Bob Menendez from New Jersey, again, got tried and sentenced, and is doing time now because of allegations and proven this is no longer allegation because of something he got from Egypt, and then his wife also was sort of like hiding stuff. So she too, is facing prosecution. So again, people have to be serious about the affairs and prestige of their country. Your country is your home. If you allow outside people to come in there, kick you to the boys' quarters, like they say in Nigeria, shame on you. Again, we are no longer dealing with superpowers of colonization and undue influences. Now, if you really merit the name of being an independent nation, you have to stand up for your people first. How much money is really enough? Mobutu died, having billions. Go to Mobutu's village and see what has left. So how much money is really enough? When you see African leaders driving Rolls Royces like you see Wike in Nigeria and so many others, is that what makes the world think Nigeria is growing? Nigeria has no water system. Electricity came to Nigeria 14 years. Power plant was built in America. America had it 106 years after independence. Nigeria got it 64 years before independence. But today, the most populous black nation in the world cannot even generate 8,000 megawatts. So what is the pride? It's not just throwing up your hand and beating your chest. Let us talk about the basic things that affect 90-something% of Nigerians. No bad roads, bad healthcare system, education. How many Nigerian universities have made it to the world reputation? That is what matters, not your president flying all over the world, especially when he's sick. Do you consider the national security implication of a president going to a foreign hospital, subjecting himself to be treated, his blood taken and the x-ray taken? They can use that to compromise him. And Nigerian people do it. Obasanjo did it. Yar'Adua did it. Everybody, every one of them has done it. It's a shame. And then you come out and you claim that Nigerian doctors are the best in the world. You know, all Nigerians are smart people. Smart people run smart countries. So far, Nigeria has been showing it, and Nigeria is a symbol of how well the black race can do, whether they're in Africa, Caribbean, or anywhere else. So far, they have not held that beacon to say, hey, look at how they're doing it. Instead, you have leaders that are running all over the place looking for money. Why are you borrowing money from sources that are going to compromise you? Okay, so Nigeria by October 1 is going to be 65 years old. You know, there's a popular saying, the fool at 40 is the fool forever. So that's 24 years upon 40. What do they have to show? What sector of Nigerian economy is a symbol of success? Let's talk about that. I understand what Alex is saying. Yes, there are some African countries, but you look at the entire sub-Saharan African country. Okay. Look at the entire sub-Saharan. Look at West African countries have more a region in the ECOWAS community. You tell me one that is a symbol of success. Ghana was the first West African country, you know, to get independence. Where is Ghana today? Where is Ghana? So let us be realistic. All those things can change when the human factor is embraced and people are sincere about what it is they want to do. We have been exposed to the same education, all these white people, excuse my use of that, white people will run to. We have been exposed to it. I went to Harvard, so many other people have, and gone to Oxford and gone to Yale. At the end of the day, when they give you that certificate to go home and do something for your community, why are you still chasing after people that you are smarter than?
Okay.
Why?
All right.
You know, I don't care what anybody is saying. The fact is that we need to see a successful black nation, and if Nigeria is going to be it, they have to act like it. But not when a Nigerian president, he gets a little stomach ache, he runs, he flies to France or anywhere to go treated. It's a shame. And I hope in the 2027 election, Nigerians are going to be very cognizant of these things that Tinubu is doing, and they reward him or they make him pay.
All right, Ejike.
Because he shouldn't be doing stuff.
All right, now, African leaders have to do better. Let's come back to you, Alex. Alex, how will this whole issue, you know, affect current French military or even security operations in the Sahel and also in Libya? Do you think that there will be distrust, you know, for Paris more, or are we going to see France, you know, cleaning house? Because, yes, they've held, you know, their past or former president accountable.
Yeah, so France is definitely going through a period of reflection and introspection about what to do in the Sahel. It's not welcome in most Sahelian countries. It doesn't have good diplomatic relations with any of the AES junta states. It is focusing on the coastal states now. President Macron is looking at maybe a visit next year to a number of coastal states in West Africa, for example, so building those up. And French military bases are being reduced or have gone, except for Djibouti, for example. There remains a presence there and a small presence also in Gabon. So France is configuring its Africa posture. You may well feature it on this program next year and invite Ejike and I to debate it, but France is going to hold its first first France-Africa summit on African soil. Previously, they've always been in France, and it will be in Nairobi. So that's a big event for France-Africa relations that will be on the African continent next year. The problem is that African countries do need international partnerships to fight jihadism, and so France is one of those that I do think will still need to play a future role until African militaries are able to be able to do this just on their own, and that would be the optimum result, but they are struggling. I mean, you can see the problems that are happening, particularly in the AES states. In the AES states were concluded, well, ECOWAS has been no good, the UN has failed, the French have been terrible, so let's invite in Russians. But that's not working either. And so I do think we need to think this thing through for the security of West Africa. I mean, what everybody wants is prosperity and stability and peace in West Africa, and that's not happening at the moment in the Sahelian states.
Absolutely. So we will be wrapping up now, but in 1 minute, let's have your final thoughts, Ejike.
Look, I like the conversation. We have to be sincere about what the challenges are. Nation building is 24/7, 365. Even when you think you have achieved success, you have to keep going at it. So again, my thing is, okay, I live in America. I would never be coming back to live in Nigeria. But my point is, we can build those bridges. The reason America is what America is, like everybody from the world is an American in some kind of way. So what you want to do is you want to embrace people that share in your striving to be successful. Success for me is not about the very few on top. Success for me is about that average person in any particular country. Are you able to have food on your table, clothing on your back, and shelter over your head? And then if you are sick, not many people are going to have the resources to go abroad. So when a president of a country is showing to that particular country, oh, when I'm sick, I gotta go abroad, it's a shame on them. These are the people that voted for you, but then you are going to rely on foreign people to enable you to do what you're supposed to do for your people. I'm just saying that going forward, African Black people have to own it, like we say in America. You own it. And the way you own it is to make sure that negotiations and partnerships that you need. If partnership is not one that is enabling each partner to rise at the same time, it's not a partnership, it's a torture. And that's an exploitation, and Black people have constantly been exploited because Black people are the easiest people in the world to be exploited. And they know it, they have to change that attitude.
All right. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for speaking to us and for your time. Ejike Okpa, Global Affairs Analyst in the U.S., and also Alex Vines, European Council. I'm sorry, I didn't get the rest. Okay, African Director, European Council on Foreign Relations, if I'm right. Thank you so much once again for your time.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Alex.